It's the Super Bowl, but we don't care. It's the fantasy basketball waiver wire. Michael Super Bowl Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I've been scoping out the gruz. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Also, go to LockedOnDaily.com and find the best newsletter for your favorite NBA team. That is LockedOnDaily.com. Double bang this one as well. That would be mucho apreciado. I don't think that's actually Spanish at all, but you know. As the kids say, we move. And we move right into talking about the waiver wire. It is International Day of the Arabian Leopard. So those of you who have got one of those as pets, give it a big extra scratch under the chin for me. And otherwise, just, go about your lives. We're here to talk about the fantasy basketball waiver wire. So let's just crack straight in and have a look at who the most added players are. We use this in 3 different little sections to get a broad overview of 18 different players. The most added player on Basketball Monster is the one and only Kyshawn George. Now, you know that I have part of the idea of me on this show. That I've got 2, 3 things, 4 things, 5 things, 20 things that I do on this show, right? One of the main things there are things that I do and don't do. One of the main things I try to do is provide, saying education feels like I'm a massive wanker, which I am, but it's more about like, hey, I don't want to hold your hand and say, drop this player for this player now. You must trade him for him. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. It actually leads to worse outcomes because I can't provide the nuance for every league. What I want to do is provide broad information, analysis, trend identification, etc., but also giving the ideas and the things that I see and how you can recognize them. One of the things that I talk about all the time is watch media, watch TV, Twitter, Insta, TikTok, whatever. And when you see hype tweets, make sure you're checking for certain information. And I love these guys, the guys at Point Made Basketball. They're in an industry pickup with us, one of those things. But they love hyping guys up, which is great, right? They love talking about breakouts and that sort of stuff. They had a tweet yesterday about Kyshawn George, saying, man, Kyshawn George, look at what happened. He's been unleashed since the deadline. So there's a couple of things we look at with that, which is like, it was 2 games, and he had 85% true shooting. Now, he is the most added player, Kyshawn George, and none of this suggests I'm not telling you to add him. What I'm telling you, when we're looking at what Kyshawn George has been doing, is that there are a few things here that just are not going to stick. He's shooting 60... These stats, by the way, that you're seeing if you're on YouTube watching from the screen, he's shooting 61% from the field over the last week. He's playing 28 minutes a night, but he's still only at 14% usage. That's one of my, it's a bit red flaggy, where I go, oh, okay, so Kyle Kuzma's gone. Your minutes are up, but you're still not doing anything? Yeah, you're getting some nice defensive stats. You're ranked really highly, 77th in category leagues, 110th in points leagues. You're only 55% rostered. But to get there, you had to shoot 61 from the field. And if you just want to have a quick look at Kyshawn George's long-term season numbers, you'd suggest that that's probably not a real thing that's going to hold. Probably not going to do it. He's averaging 13, 5, and 2. He's averaging 1.3 steals, which is great, and 0.7 blocks, which is solid. But getting by with such low usage is a tough thing to do. I've got absolutely no problem with Kyshawn George being rostered, but I do think that he's going to be one of those fringy type of guys who we're in and out of, and when he has a run of shooting 28% from 3, which is like the first 15 weeks of this season, he's going to be pretty useless if this is the usage role that holds. The second most added player is Nick Smith Jr., who's actually out for today's game. We talked about how the Hornets have got one of the best upcoming schedules, but that's a lot of games and guys might sit. Well, we see LaMelo and Nick Smith out today. And then the reversal of the trade, which I haven't spoken about on this show yet, but the trade got reversed of Mark Williams for Dalton Knecht and Cam Reddish. So Dalton Knecht and Cam Reddish go back to the Lakers. Mark Williams goes back to the Hornets. Now, let me just get a couple of things of that out of the way. Mark Williams was failed on a physical by the Lakers, not by the NBA. Mark Williams being failed on a physical by the Lakers was nothing to do with his back, which is the thing that sidelined him all of last season. I've been told it's not actually to do with his foot either. It's to do with something that the Lakers claim that they saw on the medical imaging that they didn't like for the future. Now, there are two ways to look at this. That's true. And I don't know. I don't actually know if I'm allowed to say what I've been told in terms of the thing that they claim that they found. I don't know that I can say that. All I can tell you was not back or foot. I can tell you that. And I can tell you that it's not an injury that he has. He's not injured. Mark Williams is not injured. But it is also possible that the Lakers went in there. You can find so many things on medicals if you want, especially with a guy the size of Mark Williams, with as many injuries as he's got, and you can actually use that as an excuse to fail a physical. Did the Lakers get cold feet? It is possible where they went, we just gave up an unprotected first in 2031, a pick swap, we gave up Dalton Knecht, and now we have no other ways of making our team better, and we actually do have some injury concerns here. Should we just maybe pull back on this? I'm not going to rule that part out. That's because, again, I've been told that that is not something that is categorically ruled out by industry sources. Let's put it that way. Hasn't been ruled out. So the next question people have is, well, Mark Williams has failed a physical. That means he can't play for the rest of the season. Yeah, I've had people asking that. No, it does not mean that at all. Not in the slightest. Mark Williams is not injured. He's not injured. Mark Williams is sitting out today's game, but there's nothing to suggest at this point. He's not, well, not nothing. He is not injured. Mark Williams is not hurt. Now, he could get hurt at any point, and they could shut him down at any point. They could do any of those things. That could all happen. But Mark Williams is not currently injured. So Mark Williams will play for the Hornets. So I believe your ads of Yusuf Nurkic, which for some reason that trade still hasn't been officially processed, but Nurkic is on the Hornets bench today. That trade hasn't gone through. I think you could feel very okay about dropping Yusuf Nurkic. I think you could feel pretty okay about dropping Moussa Diabate. Although I would try to hold Diabate because there are games that Williams is going to sit and Diabate will step up in those ones, although he got hurt today as well. So saying all of that stuff, part of the thing with Nick Smith here is that I thought, Dalton Knecht might come in here and put a bit of pressure on Smith for minutes. No, we're good then. Smith's going to be wildly inconsistent. His last 3 games have been very good. No problem with rostering him. The next one there is Gary Trent. It's Gary Trent. I hope that is just like, hey, let's see what happens. Yeah, I would not want to trust that long term. And the next one's Bub Carrington. And basically, everything I said about Kyshawn George can just be copy and pasted onto Bub. The usage is still low. The minutes are fine. I have no idea what they're doing with Brogdon, Smart, and Middleton, and all of those guys. If they play, will impact George and Carrington. I don't know that they will. But if they do play, that's what will happen. Got no problem with rostering Bub, but let's be honest, he's played 30 minutes a night, big chunks of the season, and been useless. He's okay to have, though. The next most added is Isaiah Stewart. That's largely just a stream for today. And the next one is Aaron Wiggins, who has been great. Aaron Wiggins being great, though, is largely a product of who's been out. Well, Chet rested the last game. Lou Dort's been out. Jalen Williams missed some games. And the Hong Kong mattress Carson Wallace has been out. So, again, adding Wiggins now, you don't get the big ones. You just get whatever happens moving forward. And what happens moving forward is not going to be good enough, is my guess. So I don't think I would have bothered with adding old mate Aaron Wiggins there. On Yahoo, which uses a less than 24-hour reporting period for the most added players. Number 1 on that list is Asar Thompson, whose minutes have gone up. Now, last game, Cade Cunningham was out, and Asar looked better. He was handling the ball more. He's up to 27 minutes a night. 26 to 27 is probably the sweet spot for me for Asar to be a 12-team league guy. But it doesn't look like 30 minutes are coming. It doesn't look like big usage is coming. And I haven't even checked on his performance in today's game. But there's enough there at the moment to look at Asar and go, yeah, okay, all right, I get it. I'm not going to be locked in on that all season. But I think with the minutes rising, it's okay. The next one is Ochai Agbaji. That is got to be just a desperation stream for today. There is no long-term appeal in that for me. And the next one ties back into the Mark Williams trade. And I knew you knew this was coming, but that's Jackson Hayes. Hayes has to be the Lakers starting center. And let me again get a couple of things clear. Clint Capella cannot be bought out and sign with the Lakers. He makes too much money. Yusuf Nurkic almost definitely will not be bought out. He is owed over $19 million next season, plus the $18 million in his contract this season. Unless the Hornets are saying here's $30 million. I don't think that Yusuf Nurkic is getting bought out. So, Nurkic is not an option. And even if he was, he couldn't sign with the Lakers anyway. The guy that they would look to is Daniel Tice, right? That would be the guy that they can sign that might be interesting. But at the moment, Jackson Hayes is it. He's 115th in -1 ranks over the last week. He's 110th in points leagues. He's only rostered in 15% of Yahoo leagues. He's 42% advanced rostered. He's averaging 9 and 7, 1.7 blocks, 69%. For everyone that got excited about Nick Richards, this is the same thing. I didn't think that Nick Richards was a must-add, to the derision of most on the internet. I don't think Jackson Hayes is a must-add, but I don't mind adding him. He's actually okay to me, because unlike Nick Richards, who had Mason Plumlee behind him, who is bad, Jackson Hayes has nobody. It's Christian Koloko. And he is way worse than Mason Plumlee. So I don't mind an ad of Jackson Hayes. It's not for everybody. But those numbers are they're like passable-ish. Passable-ish. The most added player. One of the most added players on Yahoo is Grade A Dick, the Prestige Penis. Sure, if that's for today's streaming. The next one is John Mobo, who is starting at center with Jakob Poeltl out, Kelly Olynyk gone. He's starting over Chris Boucher and over Orlando Robinson, who they signed rest of season to a two-way. We said back in early November, if you had some ability to be a long stash, I think Mobo is going to be a top 110-ish player in March. It is definitely looking that way a little bit. Outside of because we don't know what they're going to do when if Ingram plays ever. Do they go for it? What do they do? But there is going to be a period. I still believe that Mobo has value. There's a little bit happening now. I don't mind it. And the next most added player is Moussa Diabate, who we just spoke about, whose value gets chopped a lot. Williams, again, I'll restate it. Mark Williams is not injured. He is not injured. Diabate actually is injured. He hurt himself today. Diabate can be rostered, but it's not going to be super interesting with big Marky Mark back in action. Today's episode is brought to you by Skims. Skims makes undies for men. It is a seminal moment in my entire life when I found that out. It was unbelievable because, just between you and me, I'd seen Skims for women. Had I tried them on? That's for your imagination. But now I know that there are Skims men's that are available that fit my unique physique. It's not unique, I'm just a man. And that is what Skims now provides. Underwear for men. Boxer briefs, boxers, different colors, different materials. Old traditional cotton. Stretchy, high-tech, gym-style fibers. It's all there on Skims. Whatever you need, whatever fit you need. The comfort's going to be there. The active lifestyle is going to be supported. The sedentary lifestyle will also be supported. Skims isn't judging. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com and Skims stores and let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And when you're looking for the perfect gift for Valentine's for yourself, or just for your Valentine, but maybe why are you giving something to yourself? Galentine's Day? Malentine's Day? I don't know. Skims just launched their best Valentine's shop ever. Available in sizes for women, men, kids, and of course, even pets. All right. As per usual, we're running slow, but that's okay. Let's talk about the most added players on Fantrax, which uses a 7-day reporting period on their ads, drops, etc. Number one there is Carlo Matkovic. Matkovic had started 2 consecutive games. They'd gone away from Jose Alvarado. We thought Alvarado would start with DeJounte Murray out. They did not do that. They went with Matkovic. I went, okay, that's very interesting. Matkovic is a guy with some interesting skills. Let's see what they do. And then, of course, they decided to change that again. And Matkovic did not start, and Jose Alvarado started. Trying to figure out what coaches are doing is very, very difficult. Alvarado looked like the clear ad a week ago when DeJounte Murray went down, and then he'd started a grand total of 0 games. And then was out himself. And then Matkovic was the guy they started over him. I was like, okay, then Javonte Graham, which is weird, right? And then last game, Matkovic barely played 15 minutes, and Alvarado played 30, and I get people adding Matkovic. It made sense to me. I added him. I've dropped him. I think Matkovic has got an interesting fantasy game, but when the downside is 15 minutes, I don't care to hold it. So I would go and switch that for Jose Alvarado. Keon Johnson, one of the more added players on Fantrax. He's going to be inconsistent. You're going to get 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 20, 20, 30, 30, 20, 20, 30, 30. I am like the trap master, aren't I? But there's going to be so many of those interesting performances / guys being limited and then weird games with big usage and bad efficiency. He's going to be all over the place. I do prefer him to Zaire Williams and to the pimple Derek Whitehead and to Tyrese Martin, but it's going to be inconsistent. The next most added on Fantrax is Dalton Knecht. You can go ahead, John Armstrong, and...
Get that garbage out of here.
It's not happening. Someone said, yeah, but like they lost Max Christie, so maybe. No. He needs to play like 30 plus minutes. He needs to play and get like plenty of usage. And yeah, like Max Christie is gone. That is 100% true. So he will play more minutes in LA. 100% he is going to play more minutes than he was. More than the 13 minutes a game he was playing. But it's not enough. Doncic and LeBron are there. Austin Reeves is there. But it's not enough. Well, so the situation is better for Knecht than it was before the deadline. It's worse than it was on the deadline. Max Christie's the next most added player. I get that too. Christie was very, very good the last couple of games in Dallas. I really like Christie as a player. I'm glad that we got some opportunities to see him, but it is worth remembering. In that last game for the Mavericks, Anthony Davis got hurt in it, but also PJ Washington left the game very early on, and that enabled Christie to do more. And when they played Gafford, Washington, Davis, Clay all together, so it's Dinwiddie and Christie fighting for minutes off the bench, eventually Caleb Martin returns too, then like it is going to be harder. He was also shooting the absolute lights out, which is never going to hold, but I don't mind Christie as an ad. Especially because PJ and AD both got hurt. And then we can readjust it after that. The next most added player on Fantrax is a guy that just needs to be added everywhere. It's Matas Buzelis. I believe that he's been rostered in most spots. But again, when I look at Yahoo, I know that that's not true. Because he's at 26%. Using our metric, he's 99%. He's been rostered for ages and he should be. He's had a 20 usage over the last week. He's a top 70 player, top 75 in points. He's averaging 18 points. Now, 4 rebounds is not enough. The fact that he's shooting 67% from the field is 100% coming down. But unlike the high field goal percentage of Kyshawn George, Buzelis is doing it with 20% usage. He's also averaging 2 blocks a game. Now, George was getting 1.3 blocks, but Buzelis already led the Bulls in blocks before he became a 20-minute-a-night player. He was already doing this. He led the team in blocks as a 15-minute-a-night reserve. Right? So the blocks, I fully believe, this is what he does. Has the trade deadline helped him? Not really, I don't think. Like, I guess it helps marginally. Levine is out opening up some minutes, but that's not a direct one-for-one. They just took forever to get him into this role. He is just a clear must-roster player, Matas Buzelis. Clear. Easy. And the next most added player there on Fantrax is the big sneeze, Precious Achiuwa, who was dreadful in the last game. Stunk. But while OG Anunoby is out, and he's probably going to be out for a little bit more, which again, they said it wasn't too serious and he was questionable. He might be back before the All-Star break. I don't know. I don't care. We just roll with Precious until that happens. The most drop players on Basketball Monster over the last 48 hours. Number 1 is Dalton Knecht. Absolutely obvious, easy decision to make. I should have no problem doing that. Now, most of the time, people ask me, is someone to drop, right? And this is another one of my core tenets. Tenet number 32E, which of course is a made-up phrase, but one day I will write it all down. Maybe will I put it into a book? You never know. Probably not, but you never know. Maybe. Anyway, Dalton Knecht. People say, like, is this guy a drop? And often the easy answer you want is, oh, yes or no. But in every situation, you don't need to drop somebody unless you're adding somebody. You don't. What's the point? So I could say Dalton Knecht's a drop, meaning droppable. Yeah, like, okay, if you want to move on, do it. But you got to have someone to add. And that's, I think, more appropriate for Cole Anthony, who's been, like, okay. I wouldn't say he's been great. And when Suggs comes back, I wouldn't bother. But he's been, like, okay. It just depends who else is out there. And the same goes with the next guy. It is Cole Anthony's teammate. It's the dart, Goga Bitadze, because it's been really bad. He's the 207th ranked player over the last week. He's got an under 14% usage. People have started to drop him. He's averaging 6 and 8 with a block and 63% shooting. They're worse than Jackson Hayes. He's shooting also an abominable 29% from the free throw line, which, of course, is ridiculous. But we worried about this, that when Wendell Carter was back, the Goga would get limited. And he is. 22 minutes a night. Now, you don't have to drop Goga Bitadze at all. He could easily play more than 22 minutes and easily shoot better from the line and easily do more of his stuff. But unless he gets like 27, I don't think that that's a must at all. The next name on the list is an interesting one. It's Sticks. The question you're going to ask is, do I stand by my man? Well, obviously we grabbed Jalen Smith as a last-minute stash I say last minute because if you do it too early, you're just killing your own team. Because we thought, oh, maybe Vooch gets traded. Well, Vooch did not get traded. But let me put it this way. Nikola Vucevic is playing bad. He's not playing well. His numbers are down. He's outside the top 80 over the last 2 weeks. His minutes have also dropped a little bit. And you know who's playing well at the moment? Jalen Smith. And the Bulls are the Bulls. And they will do weird things. But I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked if we start to see Vooch pull back 1 minute, 2 minutes. A knee soreness, back spasm, shoulder soreness creeps up. And Smith gets a run at things. I held him in one league. It was a deeper bench league. I think it was the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl category league. I've held on to Smith. Because he's doing just enough. He's not killing it. He's not blowing up at top 70. He's doing just enough to go, let's see what direction Chicago takes this. And I'm never going to trust the Bulls, but I just want to see. Ziaire Williams has been dropped. He is very inconsistent. He will probably have a run of being good at some point, but I don't care enough. And Wendell Carter Jr., that's an easy drop for Wendell Carter Jr. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or you want to bet on something that's cracking in the fourth quarter, a comeback, for example, you can stay into the action. So if you're looking for that bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. The live betting is great and enables you to use your knowledge and see what is actually transpiring. Go, or maybe I'll just try something a little bit nifty here and see if that spread that we're looking at for rest of game is going to hold. Right? You can do all that now. And a new customer on FanDuel, if you get a $5 bet and you win it, well, you get $150 in bonus bets. So go to FanDuel.com to join today. That is FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, let's look at the most dropped players over on Yahoo over the last 24 hours. The most dropped player there is someone we just spoke about. It is Precious Achiuwa. People on Yahoo can be very reactive. Precious was very bad last game. Very bad. But the games before were fine. And the opportunity is still there. I don't think I would have been that quick to drop him. Now, people can be like, I need somebody on Sunday, and he is my worst player. And in those cases, you go for it. I don't know that he needed to be the most dropped player. Andrew Nembhard also stinks at the moment. He's been someone that I've really sort of struggled to crystallize my thoughts on. He's a guy where I go, I don't think he's got very big upside. I think he's like okay, but like some of this glazing of Nembhard as the guy that's running things and he's going to jump up and he's awesome in the playoffs. I was like, I don't know about that. He's a low usage player. I'm not sure. Then he had a run where he was really, really good. And I went, okay, maybe we do need to roster him. And now it's back to nothing. And one of those theories that I continue to have this season is that when someone has this real downside value, where they can be good, but they can also do nothing, that means they're not a must. It means they're fine if you want to try it and roll a hot streak, but you don't have to just hold on to those sort of players. Royce O'Neal's been dropped. Like, okay, whatever. Next one's Tari Eason, which is very interesting. Now, Eason's obviously sitting back-to-backs, and the Rockets have, I believe, their next 2 sets of games are both back-to-back sets, so he's going to sit one of those. So it's like 2 games over 2 weeks. And honestly, Eason's production hasn't been that good. And he would almost surely be a drop when Jabari returns. I would try to hold Tari Eason, but he's not blowing us away at the moment. I don't really get this one, why Kyshawn George is the 5th most dropped player on Yahoo. I honestly don't understand that at all. I know he is listed with a questionable tag, but I don't get that. Don't know why he's been dropped, but whatever. And the next one is, no, did it happen? Did BDNR get dropped, did he? The must-win, must-add league winner got dropped. Oh, no. Okay, so he's down to 34% rostered, Richards. Over the last week, he's averaging 6 and 9 with 1.5 blocks, shooting 50 from the field and 88 from the line. It's actually not that bad. He's 124th in -1. He's 153rd in points leagues over that time. And this is basically exactly who I thought he was. Someone who is bad, who would probably get his minutes eaten by Plumlee because, again, he is bad. But he might do enough to hold around the fringes. And which of course equals not a must roster player. So he's been dropped. Makes complete sense to me. Do you need to hold him? I mean, you can. There's a lot of these sort of centers. There's Jackson Hayes. There's bloody Musa Diabate. There is the guy I just mentioned before, Goga Badadze. There's Nick Richards. These are all these sort of guys that just float around this same area where maybe just like stream them for Schedule Plus spots. But when you're getting beaten for minutes consistently by Mason Plumlee, well, yeah, I'm fairly comfortable saying that you're not very good. Maybe they should avoid his trade. On Fantrax, the most dropped players over the last 7 days. The top 2 are out for the season. DeJounte Murray, Jalen Johnson, former teammates. The next one there is an interesting one, and that's Vit Krejci. And the Hawks have a lot of questions that I don't really know the answers to. Because Krejci was playing really well. And then they decided, no, we're going to start Dominic Barlow and reduce his minutes. And then they brought in a bunch of wings, and then his minutes went back up. He's only 6% rostered, Krejci. He's still, despite the struggles that I think some of you think he's had, he's 109th over the last week. He's averaging 10 and 7 with 3.5 assists, shooting 54 from the field. Hasn't attempted a free throw. Well, hasn't hit a free throw, sorry. He's playing 28 minutes a night. He's hitting almost 3 threes. Is he a must roster? I wouldn't go that far. But he's totally okay in 12s. Now, we've still got to work out what happens with Mann, with Levert, with the power forwards, with any of that stuff. It's very up and down. But they're not pushing minutes into Ricochet. Krejci's, again, it's just a fringe sort of a player who it's okay to roster, it's okay to try, but it doesn't have to be a must. But he's not like a clear hold or a clear drop. The next dropped player on Fantrax is Josh Okogie. He's out for weeks. He might have a role later on when he returns, but wouldn't worry about that. Trace Jackson-Davis. People are still rostering Jackson-Davis. You do not need to do that in 10, 12, or 14-team leagues. And the last one is Vasilija Micic. He's moved over to Phoenix. He's going to be the third-string point guard. He might get bought out and go back to Europe. So, yeah, obviously we're not doing anything holding on to him. Normally I would go now and talk about must-roster players. Honestly, had a look at the list. I didn't really see any clear top 100-ish sort of guys who are sitting available in a lot of spots. So I don't want to just force stuff. What I do want to talk about now are some droppable players. Guys that are highly rostered, that you can hold, but you don't have to. And we'll start with Jeremy Grant, who is like fine. He's very clearly killing Denny Avdia at the moment, by the way. And Denny is not far from being on this list. But Grant is not doing anywhere near enough upside-wise to deal with the specter of maybe sitting games. But also, like, what's the good that he's doing? Well, he's 13 and 3 with a steal. Oh, that's fine. Well done. Always remember, you might not be able to find Jeremy Grant on the waiver wire. You might not be able to. But if you can find 80% of Jeremy Grant, you're cooking. Because Jeremy Grant's 3.8 games per week, you can turn into 5.5. And 5.5 versus 3.8 is a big difference. It's basically 50% extra. So while you might not be able to find Jeremy Grant on the waiver wire, you can turn 80% of Jeremy Grant into 1.3 times Jeremy Grant. Not 1.5 times because it's not a direct 1-for-1 of Jeremy Grant on the wire. Right? And that's enough. And you chase opportunities. Oh, this guy's out for 2 days. I'll add this player. He's gone. Add the next one. Oh, he's gone. Add the next one. Move him through. And that's the same with a lot of these guys. Like, will you find a better player than DeAndre Hunter on the wire? Yeah, you probably will. But maybe not. But he goes to Cleveland now. He's not going to be taking as many shots as he was. We know the dangers of DeAndre Hunter in terms of fantasy. If the shots don't go in at an otherworldly level and he doesn't take a lot of them, he's useless. So I'd probably try to hold for one game to see what happens. With Strus still there though. Wade being out helps. Obviously Levert being gone helps. But I just don't think that he's going to do enough. Aaron Gordon, very much like Aaron Gordon, what is he, Denver's Jeremy Grant? He's going to be, like, again, fine in a vacuum, but the minutes aren't even high at the moment. I wouldn't bother. And Michael Malone, for some reason, decided, all right, I'm opening up the rotation a bit. He has 10 minutes for Hunter Tyson. He has 25 of Julian Strawther. We're not just playing 37 for everybody. He's easing guys back. So you don't need to roster him. You don't need to roster Klay Thompson, who is worse than Max Christie. He's playing 24 minutes a night. He's a 3-point streamer. He's a better Tim Hardaway, barely better Tim Hardaway. Ben Mathurin, same thing. Like, he's not a 3-point streamer. He's like a point streamer who doesn't get to the line as much anymore. Why are we still rostering him in as big a volume as we are? Absolutely not a must. And the last one is Jonas Valanciunas. He is Domantas Sabonis' backup. Weirdly, Sabonis' minutes have been down the last 3 games. One of those was a foul trouble game. But not enough to make Valanciunas viable. Not at all. You don't roster Jonas Valanciunas in 10 or 12 or 14-team leagues. It doesn't make any sense to me to do that. Hot players. These guys are all in the top 100 over the last 7 days. Jordan Clarkson, who is going to sit one game of back-to-backs, but he's the 40th ranked player per game over the last week. That's really good, isn't it? So yeah, like he is fine to roster until he's not, and then you just make that call. The next one is the 59th ranked player, Gershon Yabusele. Now today, the Sixers were all healthy, and Yabusele went to the bench, and they started Justin Edwards. I'll do the recap of that game later on in the recap show. But Yabusele has, like, he's been on a hot streak, absolutely. And there was that news about Joel Embiid saying he's going to need another knee surgery in a long time to recover. Yeah, guys, his knee is cooked. It is rooted. I don't care what surgery he has. The chances of him ever getting back to close to normal are done. Like, it's not happening. I'm very, very steadfast in this. If he does, great. I want him to because he is a great player. But he is done. Yabusele, though, like, will have an occasional big one, as we all do, and some bad ones. He's okay to have, but I wouldn't call him a must, even though he's been hot. Odosumu ranked 72nd. That's solid enough. He still, like, just doesn't strike me as a super high upside player, but he's fine to roster. Nikola Jovic ranked 74th. We're going to get more info when Andy Wiggins plays. I think that Jovic we hold, and we might drop after that. Grayson Allen, 84th. There's been absences there with Beal and Durant, so while they're out, Allen is absolutely worth using. Like, I'd much rather have Grayson Allen at the moment than Klay Thompson. And the last one is Najee Marshall, 87th ranked player. That's a little skewed because AD's been out, PJ's been out, and Marshall's been doing a little bit more. I realistically don't think he's going to hold as a top 100 player. But he has done it, and that is important to note. Got 4 injury replacement guys here, and again, I haven't actually seen the result of this game, Charlotte, today. But KJ Simpson started with LaMelo Ball out. And I believe that when LaMelo Ball sits more games, and I do worry about where this team is heading, there's no Midsich there anymore. And at the previously we thought, maybe they just start Nick Smith at the point and Dalton Knecht at the 2. Well, guess what? That won't happen. So if you've got stash ability, KJ's your man, I reckon. I'm very, very interested in stashing KJ Simpson. John Mobo, I talked about him earlier. He's marginally interesting as a stash. The next one, this is a real double Onyx Diamond Platinum legend. Last game, there was no Mike Conley. There was no Anthony Edwards. Rob Dillingham started, but do you know who played 30 minutes? Jalen Clark. And I've said this comparison, I'll continue to say it. The shape of a player of Jalen Clark is DeAnthony Melton. And we love DeAnthony Melton for fantasy. Clark had 3 steals last game, played 30 plus minutes. And yeah, Ant and Conley aren't out long term. Clark is a two-way guy. But it's just, you just keep an eye on it, right? You just keep an eye on him. I could throw Nickeil Alexander-Walker in there. At the moment, though, Clark's a better player than Dillingham. I'm not saying he's going to be there long term, but he was a player who was drafted late due to a torn Achilles. And there's enough little flashes there for me. The last one is Brandon Pajemski. While John Kuminga is out, Pajemski, I think, is a 12-team league guy. He might be a 12-team league guy when Kuminga returns, but I don't know that. At the moment, we just ride with him. And then the other 2 guys on the Golden State Warriors are like Heald and Post. But Pajemski's the more interesting one there. I've got 6 other names that I want to talk about. Number 1 here is Mohamed Wayauge. His game the other day was really impressive. And then he went back to the G League. And he's not on a 2-way, by the way. So just watch his minutes. Will they start him? Will they start Barlow? Will they start Nyang? Will they start Krejci? They got a lot of different options. Will they start Man? If we knew that Mohamed Gay was going to be the starting power forward, I would add him in 12-team leagues. But we're not even close to that spot. But it's a name to watch. George Niang was also in the last game, but I'll throw the exact reverse, Uno reverse, onto him. Do you know that when I was growing up, we used to call it, instead of Uno, we used to call it Uno? Why, I've got no idea. George Niang was great in that first game. But Gay wasn't available. Gay was like he'd played 2 games in a row and he wasn't going to go back to back to back. He wasn't going to triple end it. So I don't know if Niang's going to hold that role. I think Niang's upside is pretty low, but he's interesting. We said that on trade deadline. Maybe they start him. There might be at least 14-team stuff there. I put Max Christie there, forgetting that I'd already talked about him earlier. My bad. Steph Castle. Interesting guy. First game with Fox there, terrible, droppable, clearly. Next game, awesome. And one thing I'm noting about Aussie fast bowler Mitch Johnson is that when a player gets hot, when the shots go in early, he just says, right, you're our guy today, get the minutes. Last game, That was not Steph Castle. That was the pencil Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. So Barnes got all of the shots and went crazy. And that meant that Sohan's minutes dropped and Castle's production dropped. Now, Steph Castle has been a 30-minute a night player for many games this season, and he has not sniffed 12-team league value outside of a couple of little patches. People are very interested in him. People really dislike my take on what he is as a prospect, which is fine. He is horribly inefficient still. I think he's shooting 28% from three. He's still horribly inefficient. He still doesn't do enough in any other categories to get me excited. But there are going to be the spike games, which are going to get highlighted a lot. If you want to roster him, I think it's okay. It's just not one that I feel unbelievably confident about holding him and thinking it's going to happen. Because again, he still comes off the bench. There's no guarantee of even 25 minutes because we've actually got the evidence of that. But he could. But he would need 30 minutes with 26 usage for me to say, good, you're a 12-team league guy. The next player here, I bring this up because he's not universally rostered. It's Isaiah Collier. He was just a very, very tough player to figure out. He was the worst player in the NBA for 2 months. He's only 34% rostered on Yahoo. He's 92nd in -1 over the last week. He's 5th in points leagues. He's averaging 13, 4, and 11 assists. And his shooting's actually improved. He's up to 44 from the field and 83 from the line. I had him in the lottery of the draft because I was like, A, I hate this draft. B, this guy's got a really high pedigree, and I love his ability to get to the rim and not necessarily even finish, but just get there, draw free throws, and pass. And there's just not many guys that I like in this draft class. And they've replaced Kyshawn George with him as the starting point guard. I think he's looked awesome. He was an incredibly high-level recruit, like number 1 in the class recruit. And that usually doesn't work out for guys that draft Cam Reddish, Nasir Little, for example. Doesn't work out. I think it might be here. Have they found, like, he's an actual, I say true point guard, but he's an actual point guard. And the shooting has improved. And I want to see where that goes. So I'd have to go back and check, and I don't have it in front of me, but like where I had him in my dynasty ranks, but I think it was definitely higher than where he was drafted. I know that much. And he looks very good. And he is just this is one of the best examples. If you want to reference straight 9-cat rankings, you're going to lose. You're going to lose out. You are just going to lose. That is not how the game is played. That is not any relevance to head-to-head category leagues. And it will tell you that Collier is not very good. And that is just not true. He just has to be rostered. The last guy is Quinten Post. Last game was great from Post. Now, I will throw this caveat out there. When you're matched up against Vooch, well, basically the world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want. And Post did. Now, he can have some terrible games. And when Kuminga comes back, a Kuminga, Butler, Green frontcourt is probably going to be what they do, unless Kuminga comes off the bench. But Post is ahead of Looney and Jackson Davis for the foreseeable future. So for deeper leagues, yeah, we are absolutely delivering the Postman onto our rosters. There's going to be some shakiness, and he's at least in the stream zone for a lot of leagues. And that was a slightly different format waiver wire show. Not really format, more visually formatted, where I tried to chuck a little bit more visual excitement into it, and I hope you guys did enjoy that. Hit the thumb on the video. If you did, leave a comment. If you did, tell me, did you like the change of just highlighting a few players, a little bit of extra detail? It took me a little bit longer to get that show prepared and to actually execute the show, but I think it's worth it, and I want to know your feedback on that as well. But also, give yourself some feedback on what you did for the day. Did you make that 5-layer dip for the Super Bowl, and then you said, wow, I really regret my life choices because Josh doesn't like those dips, but don't care about what I like. Care about what you like. Care about what your family likes. Care about what your friends like. Unless it's regarding Rui Hachimura. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.